The Great Hall of the Galactic Concord Station held representatives from 47 species. Crystal chandeliers floated above their heads, powered by technology older than human civilization. The walls were carved from asteroid stone, polished until they reflected light like mirrors. This was the heart of galactic power, where laws were made and broken, where empires rose and fell with a single vote. Ambassador Teyuna stood at the speaking platform. She was a small woman with gray streaks in her black hair and calm eyes that had seen too many rejections. Behind her, a holographic display showed sensor readings from the galaxy's edge. Red warnings blinked across the screen. Something was coming. Something dangerous. The anomaly is growing, she said. Her voice was steady, practiced from 200 years of human ambassadors learning to speak without emotion. Emotion made the other species uncomfortable. Our deep space stations have detected energy signatures unlike anything in our records. We request immediate investigation and preparation of defensive measures. Silence followed her words. Then came the laughter. Counselor Vreth of the Velith Dominion rose from his elevated seat. His species had ruled this region of space for 10,000 years. They were tall, thin creatures with silver skin and eyes like black glass. They looked down on everyone, but they looked down on humans most of all. The humans see monsters in the dark again, Vreth said. His translator made his voice sound like wind through dead leaves. Tell me, Ambassador, is this like the time your people warned us about the drift collapse? The one that never happened? The drift collapse was prevented because we took action, Teyuna replied. That is the point of warnings. Or perhaps your primitive sensors simply made errors. Vreth waved one long hand dismissively. Humans have been part of this council for 2 centuries. Yet you still do not understand. You are here because we allow it. Your technology is basic. Your lifespans are short. Your empire is small. Why should we listen to your fears? Other counselors nodded. Some laughed again. The Morith delegate picked at his scales with boredom. The Phoenix ambassador was already leaving for lunch. Teyuna looked at them all. She had given this same warning 3 times before. 3 times they had ignored her. 3 times they had called humans paranoid, primitive, afraid of shadows. She thought about the message she had received that morning. It came directly from Earth, encrypted with codes that had not been used in 50 years. The message was short, just 2 words. Protocol Sunset. She knew what those words meant. Every human in council space knew. They had prepared for this moment since the day they first joined the Concord and realized they would never be equals. They would always be servants. They would always be mocked. Very well, she said quietly. I have nothing more to say. She stepped down from the platform. No one noticed. They were already discussing trade agreements and border disputes. The small politics of comfortable empires. Far above the station, Captain Daesung stood on the bridge of the diplomatic cruiser Horizon's Edge. He was a tall man with broad shoulders and a face that rarely smiled. He had served in the human fleet for 30 years, protecting council space from pirates and rebels. He had saved Velith colonies from plague ships. He had rescued Morith children from a dying station. None of them had ever said thank you. His communication officer looked up from her console. Sir, we're receiving Protocol Sunset confirmation from Earth. All human vessels are acknowledging. Daesung nodded slowly. Begin departure sequence. No broadcasts. No announcements. Just go. Yes, sir. Across council space, the same scene repeated itself. On space stations, human workers put down their tools and walked to their ships. In hospitals, human doctors finished their current patients and handed over their records. In schools, human teachers ended their lessons and said goodbye to no one. On military bases, human soldiers packed their weapons and disappeared into the night. There were no protests, no angry speeches, no demands for recognition or respect. There was only silence and movement, like a tide pulling away from the shore. Admiral Kang Hana watched the operation from her command station near the border of human space. She was an older woman with white hair cut short and eyes that had seen too many battles. On her screens, thousands of green dots moved in perfect coordination. Human ships, human stations, human colonies, all withdrawing behind the border. Status report, she said. 92% of personnel evacuated from Council space, her aide replied. Remaining 8% will be clear within 6 hours. All technology packages are being removed or destroyed. No traces left behind. Kang Hana nodded. And the beacons? We've shut down our maintenance protocols. The hyperspace network will continue functioning for approximately 4 months. Then it will begin to fail. The beacons were humanity's greatest gift to the Council. For 200 years, human engineers had maintained the network that allowed faster-than-light travel. The other species used the beacons but never bothered to understand them. Why would they? Humans were happy to do the work. Humans were always happy to serve. Back on the Concord station, the Council session ended. Councillor Vreth returned to his private chambers, satisfied with another day of reminding lesser species of their place. He did not notice that the human staff in the hallways were gone. He did not notice that the lights flickered slightly, missing their usual maintenance. Ambassador Teyuna walked through the empty human quarter of the station. Every room was clean. Every bed was made. Every personal item was packed and gone. It looked like no one had ever lived there at all. She reached the council chamber one final time. The great hall was dark now, the other ambassadors gone to their evening meals. She walked to the speaking platform and placed her credentials on the podium. The small badge that marked her as humanity's voice. The symbol of 200 years of service, sacrifice, and silence. She bowed once. To no one. And everyone. Then she walked away. Outside, her shuttle waited. Captain Daesung stood at the door, his face unreadable. "It's done," he asked. "It's done." They boarded together. The shuttle lifted off, joining a stream of human vessels leaving the station. On the viewing screen, they watched the Concord station grow smaller and smaller until it was just another point of light among the stars. Neither of them spoke. There was nothing left to say. The council would wake tomorrow to find every human gone. They would search their records and find no explanation. They would send messages that would never be answered. They would demand, then request, then beg for humanity to return. But the humans were done begging. They were done asking for respect that would never come. They were done warning people who would not listen. They had spoken for 200 years. Now they would let the silence speak for them. And somewhere at the edge of the galaxy, the anomaly continued to grow. 6 months passed since the humans left. At first, the council celebrated. They held festivals and made speeches about how the galaxy was finally free of human complaints and human fears. Councillor Vreth gave a famous address where he said the departure proved that humans were too weak for galactic politics. They had run away like children, he said. They would come back begging within a year. But the humans did not come back. Trade Minister Olix was the first to notice the problems. His species, the Fennecs, were merchants who moved goods between 100 worlds. They needed the hyperspace beacons to travel quickly. Without fast travel, their business would die. "The beacon near Station 12 is failing," his assistant told him one morning. "Ships are arriving days late. Some are not arriving at all." Olix frowned. "Contact the maintenance crews, sir." The maintenance crews were human. They left with everyone else. Then contact someone else. The Velith, the Morith, anyone who knows how to fix beacons. His assistant was quiet for a long moment. "Sir, no one knows how to fix the beacons. The humans built them. The humans maintained them. We never learned how." Olix felt something cold in his stomach. He pulled up the records and started reading. What he found made him feel sick. Humans had built the beacon network 300 years ago, before they even joined the council. They had offered the technology freely, asking only for membership in return. The council had accepted the gift but rejected the request. It took another 100 years of service before humans were finally allowed to join. And even then, only as a minor species, with limited voting rights. For 2 centuries, humans had maintained every beacon, repaired every relay, upgraded every system. They had asked for nothing except respect. The council had given them nothing except contempt. Now the beacons were dying. One by one, the lights of the hyperspace network were going dark. But transportation was not the only problem. On the Morith homeworld, a plague broke out in the southern cities. It was an old disease, one that had been controlled for generations. The cure was simple. a compound that any medical station could produce. Except the compound required human biosynthesis techniques. Morith scientists had the formula but not the method. They had never bothered to learn. Why would they? Humans were always there to make more. 10,000 Morith died in the first month. 50,000 died in the second. Counselor Vreeth watched the reports with growing unease. He did not care about Morith lives, but he cared about stability. Dead citizens meant angry citizens. Angry citizens meant political problems. He called a meeting of the full council. The great hall was less crowded now. Some species had already left, returning to their homeworlds to deal with their own crises. The crystal chandeliers flickered. No one had maintained the power systems since the humans left. "We must send envoys to human space," said the Fenix ambassador. "We must ask them to return." "Ask them?" Vreeth's voice was sharp. "We do not ask. We are the Galactic Council. They are a minor species who forgot their place. With respect, Counselor, our ships cannot fly without their beacons. Our people cannot be healed without their medicine. Our economy cannot function without their logistics." The Fenix ambassador spread his hands. "We did not realize how much we depended on them." The words hung in the air like poison. Dr. Bake Mina had been one of the finest human scientists in Council space. She had worked at the Central Research Institute for 40 years, studying deep space anomalies. Her work had predicted 3 major disasters, all of which were prevented because of her warnings. But her final warning, the one about the anomaly at the galaxy's edge, had been ignored. Counselor Vreeth himself had called her research primitive speculation. He had cut her funding and reassigned her staff. She had left with the other humans, taking all her data with her. Now Vreeth found himself reading her old reports, the ones he had dismissed without reading. The anomaly she described was not a natural phenomenon. It was artificial. Something was out there. Something old and patient, watching and waiting. He closed the files. It was too disturbing to think about. The Council sent envoys to human space. 3 ships carrying diplomats from 12 species, loaded with gifts and promises. They crossed the border and found a wall of warships waiting for them. The human vessels did not fire. They did not speak. They simply blocked the path and waited. The lead envoy, a Velith noble named Drath, broadcast his message on all frequencies. "We come in peace. The Council wishes to discuss the return of human representatives. We offer full recognition and expanded voting rights." Silence. "Please respond. We are authorized to negotiate. All previous disagreements can be forgotten. The Council values human contribution to galactic society." Silence. We apologize for any offense given. The Council recognizes that humans were treated unfairly. We wish to make amends." Silence. For 3 days, the envoy ships waited at the border. No human vessel moved. No human voice spoke. It was as if they were talking to ghosts. On the 4th day, Drath ordered his ships to turn around. They returned to Council space with nothing. No agreement. No hope. Not even a rejection. Just silence. Trade Minister Olix received the news in his office. Outside his window, he could see cargo ships sitting idle in the station docks. There was nowhere for them to go. Half the hyperspace routes were already closed. "What do we do now?" his assistant asked. Olix had no answer. Across the galaxy, other species were asking the same question. The Morith were burying their dead. The Fenix were watching their economy collapse. The Velith were pretending nothing was wrong. But their pretending grew harder every day. Humans had been the workers, the builders, the healers, the maintainers. They had done the jobs no one else wanted. They had solved problems no one else could solve. They had given everything and asked only for respect. The Council had given them nothing but insults. Now the Council was learning what it meant to be alone. On the border of human space, the wall of warships remained, silent, patient, waiting, and far away. At the edge of the galaxy, the anomaly sent its first signal, a pulse of energy that traveled faster than light, carrying a message to anyone who could hear it. The message was simple. It said, "We are coming." No one in Council space detected the signal. Their sensor networks had been designed by humans, maintained by humans, understood by humans. Without humans, the sensors were just expensive decorations. But behind the silent border, human stations received the signal loud and clear. Admiral Kanghana read the translation and felt her blood run cold. "How long?" she asked. 8 months, her aide replied. "Maybe less." Kanghana looked at the star map on her wall. Council space was marked in blue, human space in green. The anomaly was marked in red, growing larger every day. "They're not ready," she said quietly. "They have no idea what's coming. Should we warn them?" Kanghana thought about all the times humans had tried to warn the Council. All the times they had been ignored, mocked, dismissed. All the times they had begged for someone to listen. "No," she said finally. "They wouldn't believe us anyway." She turned back to her screens and began preparing for war. 14 months after the humans left, the Hollowing arrived. They came from the dark space between galaxies, where no stars shine and no life grows. Their ships were black as night, shaped like needles 1,000 kilometers long. They did not communicate. They did not negotiate. They simply appeared at the edge of Council space and began to harvest. The first world to fall was a Morith colony called Greenwater. It was a peaceful planet, home to 3 million farmers and their families. The Hollowing fleet arrived at dawn. By sunset, nothing remained. Not the cities, not the farms, not the people, not even the bones. The Hollowing did not kill for conquest or revenge. They killed because they were hungry. They were machines, ancient beyond measure, designed by a species long dead to collect organic matter and convert it into fuel. For millions of years, they had slept in the void. Now they were awake, and they were very, very hungry. The Galactic Council sent its mightiest fleet to stop them. 300 warships from 12 species, carrying weapons that could crack planets and shields that could stop stars. Counselor Vreth himself broadcast the attack order, promising victory and glory. The battle lasted 6 hours. The Hollowing destroyed every ship. They did not take damage. They did not slow down. They simply absorbed the energy of Council weapons and kept coming. Vreth watched the reports from his chamber on the Concord station. His silver hands trembled as he read the casualty numbers. 2 million soldiers. Gone. 300 ships. Gone. The greatest military force in galactic history. Gone. "How is this possible?" he whispered. No one answered. There was no one left who knew. The Hollowing moved deeper into Council space. They did not hurry. They did not need to. Every world they touched became dust and silence. Every fleet that faced them became wreckage floating in the void. Refugees began to flee. Ships packed with families and memories poured out of dying systems, searching for safety. But there was nowhere safe. The hyperspace beacons were failing. Travel was slow and dangerous. Many ships were lost in transit, their crews starving or freezing in the endless dark. Some refugees turned toward human space. It was the only region the Hollowing had not touched. The only region where the beacons still worked, where stations still functioned, where hope still existed. Fleet Commander Yun Ho stood on the bridge of his battleship, the Iron Promise, watching the refugee ships approach the border. He was a young commander, only 40 years old, but he had aged 10 years in the past month. The weight of what was coming pressed down on him like a mountain. "How many today?" he asked. 12,000 ships. His aide replied. "Mostly civilian. Some military escorts, but their weapons are nearly empty." Yun Ho looked at the star map. Council space was shrinking every day, eaten away by the advancing Hollowing. The blue territories that once seemed so vast now looked small and fragile, like islands in a rising flood. "Let them approach the border," he said, "but do not let them cross." Not yet. Behind the human border, preparations continued. General Pak-un coordinated the largest military buildup in human history from her command center on Earth's moon. Shipyards worked day and night, producing warships designed from 200 years of study and preparation. Scientists finished weapons that had been secret for generations. Soldiers trained for battles that their grandparents had imagined. Pak-un was a small woman with iron gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She had spent her entire career preparing for this moment. Every human military officer had. They had known the Hollowing were coming since before they joined the Council. Dr. Bakemina's research, the research the council had mocked and dismissed, had given them decades of warning. Status of the new fleet? She asked. 80% ready, her aide reported. We'll have full capacity within 2 months. The hollowing will reach the border in 3 weeks. Yes, General. Pakun studied the tactical displays. The council's military was already broken. Their economies were collapsing. Their populations were dying or fleeing. In a few months, there would be nothing left of the great galactic concord, except memories and ruins. She felt no satisfaction in this. She had hoped, secretly, that the council would change, that they would listen to human warnings and prepare for the threat, that humans and council species could face the danger together, as equals, but the council had chosen contempt over cooperation. They had laughed at human fears until those fears became their extinction. Now humans would face the hollowing alone. Or, nearly alone. On the Concord station, Counselor Vreth made a desperate decision. He would go to the human border himself. He would beg if he had to. Pride meant nothing when your species was dying. His ship crossed through the chaos of fleeing refugees and arrived at the human border after a week of dangerous travel. The wall of warships was still there, silent and unmoving, but now there were more ships than before. Many more. Vreth broadcast his message with shaking hands. I am Counselor Vreth of the Velith Dominion. I come to speak with the human leadership. Please, we need your help. We are dying. Silence. I know we treated you badly. I know we ignored your warnings. I know we called you primitive and weak. I was wrong. We were all wrong. Please. There are children dying. There are worlds burning. Whatever you want, we will give it. Just help us. Silence. Vreth fell to his knees on the bridge of his ship. Silver tears ran down his face. He had never begged for anything in his 1,000 years of life. His species did not beg, but his species was dying, and pride was a luxury he could no longer afford. Please, he whispered. Please. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then a single human ship broke from the wall and approached. It was small, a diplomatic vessel, not a warship. It stopped a kilometer from Vreth's ship and transmitted a single message. The message contained only coordinates and a date, nothing else. Vreth stared at the numbers. The coordinates pointed to a location at the edge of human space, near the border. The date was 3 weeks away. What does this mean? He asked his crew. No one knew, but it was the first response humans had given since they left. It was something. It might even be hope. Vreth transmitted the coordinates to every surviving council ship. Come to this place, he told them. Come on this date. It may be our last chance. Then he turned his ship around and joined the river of refugees flowing toward the only light left in a darkening galaxy. Behind him, the hollowing continued their advance. Patient, relentless, hungry, and behind the human border, Admiral Kang Hana watched the council's survivors gather. She thought about all the years of silence, all the years of preparation. Soon the silence would end. Soon humans would speak again. She hoped, for everyone's sake, that this time the council would listen. 2 million ships gathered at the coordinates. They filled the space near the human border like a cloud of desperate fireflies, their lights blinking against the endless dark. These were the survivors of the Galactic Council. The last remnants of 47 species, families who had lost everything, soldiers who had watched their fleets burn, leaders who had once ruled empires and now owned nothing but the clothes on their backs. Counselor Vreth stood on the observation deck of his damaged ship and watched the human border. The wall of warships had not moved. Silent, patient, waiting, as they had waited for over a year. Will they help us? Asked a young Morith child who had somehow ended up on his ship. She had lost her parents at Greenwater. She had no one left. Vreth did not know how to answer. He had spent his life believing humans were inferior. He had laughed at their warnings and mocked their fears. Now he stood among the ruins of everything he had believed, waiting for the species he had despised to decide his fate. I hope so, he said finally. I hope so. At exactly the scheduled time, a single ship emerged from the human fleet. It was larger than the others, white and elegant, marked with the symbol of Earth's government. It moved slowly through the refugee fleet, passing close enough for everyone to see. On every ship, survivors pressed against windows and watched. Some prayed to gods they had forgotten. Some held their children close. Some simply stared with empty eyes, too tired to hope anymore. The white ship stopped in the center of the refugee fleet. Its communication systems activated, and for the first time in over a year, a human voice spoke to the council. "This is Ambassador Teyuna of the Human Coalition. I speak for Earth and all human worlds." Vreth recognized the voice. It was the same ambassador he had mocked in the council chamber. The same woman he had called primitive and paranoid. She sounded older now, harder, but her voice was calm and steady, like stone. "You called us primitive," she continued. "You dismissed our warnings. You laughed when we offered to stand beside you. For 200 years, we built your networks, healed your sick, maintained your stations, and protected your borders. We asked only for respect. You gave us contempt." The words fell like hammers on the silent refugee fleet. No one spoke. No one moved. "Now you come to our door. Your worlds are burning. Your children are dying. The threat we warned you about has become your extinction. And you ask us for help." Vreth closed his eyes. "He deserved this. They all deserve this. We could let you die. Many of my people believe we should. You showed us no mercy. Why should we show you any?" The silence stretched on for what felt like hours. On ships throughout the fleet, beings who had once been powerful and proud waited like condemned prisoners for their sentence. Then Ambassador Tay spoke again, and her voice was different, softer, sadder. "But cruelty is your way, not ours. We left because we refused to beg for respect we had already earned. We return now because we refuse to become the monsters you were to us." A ripple went through the fleet. Whispers of hope, fragile as glass. "We will help you, but not as servants. Not as lesser species grateful for scraps of recognition. This is not a rescue. This is a reckoning." The white ship transmitted a document to every vessel in the fleet. The terms of sanctuary. The price of survival. Vreth read the terms with trembling hands. First, full admission of the Council's failures. Every species must broadcast a confession to all surviving worlds. They must acknowledge how they treated humans. They must acknowledge that human warnings could have saved millions of lives. Second, the old Concord is dissolved. There will be no return to the old ways. Those who wish protection must join a new alliance, built on equality and mutual respect. Humans will not serve. Humans will lead, or they will stand apart. Third, no passengers. Everyone who enters human space must contribute. Scientists must share knowledge. Soldiers must fight. Workers must work. The days of taking human labor for granted are over. Fourth, the guilty must face justice. Those who personally worked to suppress human warnings, who cut funding and mocked researchers, who made decisions that cost lives, must answer for their choices, not with death, but with truth. Their names will be remembered. Their failures will be taught to future generations. The terms were harsh, but they were fair. Counselor Vreth finished reading and looked up at the stars. His pride screamed at him to reject the terms. His people had ruled for 10,000 years. They had never bowed to anyone, but his people were dying. And pride was just another word for stubbornness when your children were starving. He activated his communication system. "I am Counselor Vreth of the Velith Dominion. I accept these terms. I confess that we treated humans with contempt they did not deserve. I confess that we ignored warnings that could have saved millions. I confess that my pride blinded me to truth. I ask forgiveness, though I do not deserve it." One by one, other ships followed. The Morith ambassador spoke of the plague that had killed his people, the plague that human medicine could have prevented. The Phoenix trade minister spoke of the economy that had collapsed because they never bothered to learn how beacons worked. Leaders and soldiers and ordinary citizens all spoke, their voices joining together in a chorus of confession and regret. It took 3 days for everyone to speak. 3 days of truth, painful and necessary. When it was over, Ambassador Tay appeared again on all screens. Behind her stood President Shin Nari, the leader of the Human Coalition. She was a tall woman with kind eyes and silver hair, dressed in simple clothes without decoration or rank. "You ask why we didn't let you die?" President Shin said. "Counselor Vreth asked me this question directly. I will answer now, so everyone can hear." She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was heavy with emotion. "We are humans. We remember being small and afraid. We remember when other species dismissed us as primitive. We remember what it felt like to beg for respect and receive only mockery. We could become like you. We could take your cruelty and make it our own. We could watch you burn and tell ourselves you deserved it. But that is not who we are. That is not who we choose to be. We left because we refused to beg. We returned because we refused to become you." President Shin stepped back, and Ambassador Tay stepped forward. "The border is open. Follow our ships, obey our instructions, and prepare yourselves. The hollowing are still coming. This war is not over. It has barely begun. But this time, you will not face the darkness alone. This time, we face it together." The wall of human warships parted. Behind them, the lights of human space glowed warm and welcoming. Stations and planets and ships beyond counting, all prepared for war, all ready to fight. The refugee fleet began to move. 2 million ships carrying the last survivors of the Galactic Council, passing through the border into human protection. Counselor Vreth watched through his window as his ship crossed the line. Somewhere behind him, the hollowing were still advancing, still hungry, still patient. The war ahead would be terrible. Many would die. Nothing would ever be the same. But for the first time in over a year, Vreth felt something he had almost forgotten: hope. 3 years of war changed the galaxy forever. The hollowing were unlike any enemy the universe had ever known. They did not tire. They did not fear. They did not negotiate or retreat. They were machines built for one purpose: to consume all organic life and convert it into fuel for their endless journey between galaxies. But humans had known they were coming. For 200 years, while the Council laughed at their warnings, humans had prepared. They had studied the hollowing from afar. They had designed weapons. They had built ships. They had trained soldiers for battles that their grandparents had only imagined. Now that preparation was paying its price in blood. Admiral Kang Hana stood on the bridge of the Coalition flagship, Eternal Dawn, and watched the final battle begin. The combined fleet of humans and Council survivors numbered over 50,000 ships. The hollowing armada was twice that size, their black needle ships blotting out the stars like a curtain of death. "All ships, this is Admiral Kang," she broadcast. "Today we finish what began at the edge of the galaxy. Today we send these machines back to the void they came from. For every world they burned, for every life they took, for everyone we lost." The fleet answered with a roar of voices from 100 species. Human, and Morith, and Velith and Fenix, all fighting together, all ready to die together. All ships forward. Attack. The battle was unlike anything in recorded history. Human weapons tore through hollowing shields that had stopped every Council attack. Tactics developed over centuries of preparation turned the enemy's strengths into weaknesses. For the first time since their awakening, the hollowing were not advancing. They were struggling, but the machines adapted. They always adapted. Every time humans found an advantage, the hollowing evolved to counter it. Ships fell on both sides. Heroes died without names. The universe itself seemed to shake with the force of destruction. Lieutenant Baek Jun was young, only 25, flying a small attack craft in the chaos of battle. His mother had been Dr. Baek Mina, the scientist whose research the Council had mocked and ignored. She had died before the war began. Never knowing if her work would matter, June carried her memory with him into every fight. "Lieutenant, we're detecting a command signal," his navigator shouted over the noise of combat. "It's coming from the central hollowing vessel. Some kind of coordination network." June looked at his scanner. His mother's research had predicted this. The hollowing were not truly intelligent. They were tools, following instructions from a central command system. Destroy the command system, and the machines would lose their coordination. They would become confused, easy targets, but the command vessel was in the center of the enemy fleet, protected by thousands of ships. No human craft could reach it and survive. "Get me a line to Admiral Kang," June said. Kang Hana listened to the young lieutenant's report with sharp attention. She recognized the name. She knew who his mother was. "Are you certain?" she asked. "My mother spent her life studying the hollowing. She predicted the command network. She even designed a weapon to disable it. I have the plans in my ship's computer. The weapon was never built. It doesn't need to be built, Admiral. It's a signal. A frequency that disrupts their communication protocols. Any ship can broadcast it, if they get close enough to the command vessel." Kang Hana studied the battle map. The command vessel was impossible to reach. Every ship that tried would be destroyed. It was suicide. "How close?" she asked. "Within 1 kilometer. The signal needs direct transmission. 1 kilometer. That meant flying into the heart of the enemy fleet, past thousands of weapons, through a storm of fire and death. No ship could survive that approach. But if it worked, the war would end. The hollowing would fall. Billions of lives would be saved. "I'll go," June said quietly. "I'm small and fast. I can make it. You'll die. Maybe. But if I do, it won't be for nothing. My mother gave her life trying to warn people who wouldn't listen. Let me give mine for people who finally did." Kang Hana was silent for a long moment. She thought about all the humans who had served the Council without thanks, all the warnings ignored, all the sacrifices forgotten. And she thought about a young lieutenant willing to die for a galaxy that had once despised his people. "Do it," she said. "All ships. Cover Lieutenant Bake's approach. Give him a path." The fleet moved. Human and Council ships alike threw themselves at the hollowing, creating chaos and destruction, opening a narrow corridor through the enemy lines. Ships exploded around June as he flew, his small craft dodging fire that would have killed anything larger. He thought about his mother. He thought about the years she had spent working on research that no one valued. He thought about the night she had cried in his arms, broken by years of contempt and dismissal. "This is for you, Mom," he whispered. His craft broke through the final line of defenders. The command vessel loomed before him, massive and dark, pulsing with signals that controlled an army of death. June activated the transmission. The signal burst from his ship like light from a dying star. It hit the command vessel and spread outward, washing over every hollowing ship in the fleet. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the machine stopped. Across the battlefield, hollowing ships went dark. Their weapons fell silent. Their movements ceased. They drifted like dead leaves in a frozen wind. Their coordination shattered. Their purpose erased. June's ship was caught in the blast. Systems failed. Power died. He floated in the darkness, watching through his cracked viewport as the enemy armada became a graveyard. "It worked," he said to no one. "Mom, it worked." He closed his eyes. The combined fleet destroyed the remaining hollowing vessels over the next 3 days. Without their command network, the machines were helpless. They could not adapt. They could not coordinate. They could only die. Lieutenant Bake June was found drifting in the wreckage, barely alive. His ship's emergency systems had kept him breathing long enough for rescue teams to reach him. He woke in a hospital bed on Earth's moon, surrounded by people he did not know, heroes of a war he had helped end. The galaxy mourned its dead and celebrated its survival. Memorials were built on 1,000 worlds. Stories were told of brave soldiers and impossible sacrifices. And on the old Concord station, now a museum, a special memorial was created. It was not for the battles. It was not for the victories. It was for a lesson. The memorial wall listed every human who had served the Council, every scientist whose research was ignored, every worker whose labor was taken for granted, every soldier who had protected people who despised them. Names upon names, carved in stone that would last forever. At the bottom of the wall, a single sentence was written in every language the galaxy knew. "They tried to warn us. We did not listen. We will never forget." Years passed. The new coalition grew stronger. Old hatreds faded. Children who had never known the old council played together on stations where their grandparents had been enemies. The galaxy was not perfect, but it was healing. Ambassador Tae Yuna, now elderly and retired, visited the memorial one last time. She walked slowly through the halls of the museum, past displays showing the departure and the silence, and the war. She stopped at the memorial wall and found a name she knew. Dr. Bakemina, Research Division. Ignored. Teyuna placed her hand on the cold stone. She remembered the meeting where Vreth had laughed at Mina's research. She remembered the silence of the departure. She remembered all the years of patience and preparation that had led to this moment of peace. "We did it," she said softly. They listened now. A young alien child tugged at her elder's robe nearby. "Why did the humans leave?" she asked. "Why did they go away without saying anything?" The elder knelt beside the child and pointed at the memorial wall. "Because sometimes, silence is the loudest warning, and we were too proud to listen." The child thought about this for a moment. "Are they still angry at us?" "No, little one. They were never angry. They were just tired of being ignored. But they came back when we needed them. That is what matters." Teyuna smiled at the exchange. She had spent her life speaking for humanity, fighting for recognition, begging for respect that never came. In the end, it was silence that had spoken loudest, silence that had made the galaxy finally listen. She turned away from the memorial and walked toward the exit. Outside, the stars sparkled in the endless night, beautiful and peaceful, safe for another generation. She did not look back. She did not need to say goodbye. Some things were better left without words.